When you listen to this conversation, you instantly feel the difference between people who talk about hardship and people who survived it. Hearing someone casually mention NATO bombs falling for months, real hunger, real trauma, that's not storytelling, that's reality. And that's what makes this video stand out. It shows the gap between comfortable opinions and lived experience.
It could get you going. But see, I find your mind, because I think your mindset is very similar to Ronaldo's. I think the pair of you have, I would add Michael Jordan, peak Tiger Woods. There are just certain people in certain sports who I think exhibit just the most ferocious mental strength and resilience, which I think you have to be the best at what you do. And I think in your case, the really interesting thing for me is where that comes from. You know, in Ronaldo's case, he was just hungry, literally physically hungry. He tells the story of queuing up behind a McDonald's just to get free burgers because he was so hungry when he was at the Lisbon Academy. In your case, I think it was born, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you talk about coming from a war-torn country. You were in Belgrade as the NATO bombs were crashing down for month after month after month. I've read that you can't even listen or hear fireworks without this giving you slightly traumatic PTSD. You know, to go through that when you're a young guy as you were, just take me back there for a moment. What are your most vivid memories of that time?
Actually, it's interesting. I didn't know about Cristiano's experience of waiting in line, and, literally being hungry. I have something similar. I was, I think, I could have been 6, 7 years of age, and we had 2 wars in '90s. We had the Yugoslavian breakout war, and then we had the bombings in '99. So between the start of the '90s, of '91 when the war started, and end of '90s, we had embargo. I think maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe even more. So obviously nothing comes in, it comes out of the country, and obviously the poverty level was extremely high, and we were waiting in line for 1 loaf of bread that us, family of 7 or 8, were sharing that day. And so those experiences, life experiences, were very real, and that made my journey even more special, in a sense that I appreciate life and everything that life has and God has granted me with much more because of my upbringing. So I normally don't like to reflect on that with a great sense of, how can I say, not sadness, but in a sense like I don't want to whine about it or complain about it, because I believe that everyone wears a cross on his or her back that he or she is meant to wear. So my journey is my unique personal journey that I had to go through and made me who I am. So I'm very grateful for that. Was it easy? No, absolutely wasn't easy. But that was an essential, integral part of who I am as a person. And that is probably the foundation of my mental strength and resilience. Because when you are, in doubt of what tomorrow brings, not just for yourself, but for your entire family and for your city, for your country, and whether you will be able to survive the next day, facing a match point in Grand Slam is not that hard.
There's a great quote from a cricket player called Keith Miller, who was an Australian in the 50s and 60s. A great all-rounder, swashbuckling character, big party guy as well. And he flew in the Second World War in the Royal Australian Air Force, flew bombers, I think. And when he came back, he was captaining Australia in a game, I think against England. And the press asked him after the first day, difficult day for Australia, they were struggling. They said, "You must be feeling the pressure, Mr. Miller." And he famously said, "Pressure?" He said, "Let me tell you what pressure is, mate. Pressure's having a Messerschmitt up your ass, not a game of cricket."
Right.
What really hits you is how war shapes a person. Waiting in line for food, growing up during bombings, those things build a mindset no coach can teach. So when they compare that mentality to Ronaldo's hunger and discipline, it actually makes sense. Strength born from survival always hits different. You don't choose it. it chooses you.
I mean, that's really what you're getting at, right? Pressure for you
Yeah.
is not a match point against Federer. It's whether you're going to actually survive bombs coming over your head.
Right. So it's a matter of perspective. I agree with that. And I think it puts things in perspective when someone says that. Nevertheless, I still feel that pressure that we experience as athletes, or you experience in your work or someone else in their work, is real. And sometimes it can help to put things in perspective, but a lot of times it doesn't. So what do I mean by that? I think it's important to understand that, you know, what you're going through is a real experience, and that you not being able to overcome certain tasks and challenges and folding under pressure, you know, doesn't make you weak. It makes you a human being that goes through that experience. So Jordan, for example, there was one of my sporting idols that you mentioned, one of the obviously goats of the big global sports. He, you know, he said that people remember the shots that he made. People remember his
I quoted
titles,
that today
his
at
successes.
the Joy Forum.
Right?
I quoted the fact, he said they never talk about the 3,000
They never
shots
talk
I
about those shots that he missed.
made. Yeah.
And one of my favorite quotes of him, he says, I missed and I missed and I missed, or I failed, and that's why I succeeded. So a lot of the times people have this fantasy of the great sporting champions and athletes and the icons of being the faultless, you know, demigods that can do it all. It's absolutely not like that. I mean, I failed so many times in my career. Actually, I almost have a 50% success rate at the Grand Slam finals. A bit more than that, but almost.
So you've lost nearly half.
So, which is not that great when you think about it.
Yeah.
I played many Grand Slam finals and I won 24, but I lost, I don't know how many at the moment, but anyway, quite a lot. So the point is that you need to go through that experience because, and this is very consistent across all the fields of life. All the successful people always say, you learn always much more from your failures than from your wins. So in sports, what I see and what I notice, particularly with men, is that there is this a little bit of a dogmatic and stigmatic mindset about emotions. You know, vulnerability makes you weak. You cannot show your tears, you cannot show your weakness, because then, you know, you are the prey. You know, I disagree with that. I believed for most of my career, for the first part of my career, that is the way to go. But then soon I realized that, you know, you can't suppress the emotions forever. Eventually, they'll start breaking your body, your mind, or whatever. So eventually, you have to address it. All the things that you put under the carpet. So basically, this is a little bit more philosophical in that sense. But you know, when you're entering on the court, for me, I'm not a tennis player, Novak Djokovic. I'm a Novak Djokovic person who has to deal with all the other things that are happening in my private life that people don't know about or should not know about. But I know about them, and I am a human being that, you know, I feel affected in my heart and in my brain.
And that's the lesson. Real resilience doesn't come from books or motivational speeches. It comes from living through things most people can't imagine. From wars, embargo, fear, and hunger comes a mindset tougher than anything fame or training can produce. That's why the story matters. It shows what true strength looks like.